Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my esteemed viewers, depending on the time zone of the world where you find yourself. I want to say a hearty welcome to you as you join us today on our channel. In case you are joining us for the first time, let me begin by telling you that this channel is Alfonso de Rothschild Tutorials. It is a channel dedicated to helping our viewers have a better grasp and upgrade themselves in communicative English. That is to help us have a better understanding of how to speak and write and listen to and read the English language, and also to expose us to other aspects of the liberal arts where the English language is applied for better, more fluent communication in this all-important language. At the moment, however, our attention has been tailored towards addressing the needs of our IELTS students. The IELTS is International English Language Test System, an all-important examination that takes a candidate's language skill in the English language. An examination that prepares primarily third world students for scholarship in the European Union, in the Americas, in Australia, in New Zealand, and other such countries where IELTS certification is a requirement for university admission and scholarship. Already we've gone a little far in talking about aspects of the IELTS examination. For today, however, our focus is on the IELTS Informal letter. The IELTS Informal letter is a part of IELTS General Candidate's Task. The IELTS General Student or Candidates, the IELTS General Candidate's Prospect, is one who intends or one who requires or who needs IELTS certification in order to pursue or further his career or her career in one of these countries that I have mentioned, especially the United Kingdom. So the IELTS General Student is therefore a professional, a career professional in one of the third world countries who seeks an opportunity to pursue his or her career further in the United Kingdom. The writing task 1 comprises the letters, informal, semi, and formal letters. We have already done one video on a lesson on the informal letter. Today's video is the second video on the IELTS Informal letter. Let me begin by tackling some of the problems or some of the questions that I believe might have been agitating your mind. The first is, to whom do I write the informal letter? Now, to speak generally, I will say you write an informal letter to someone with whom you exist or with whom you relate on roughly terms of equality. Your bosom friends, family members, including siblings and sometimes parents, but not usually including grandparents and their friends. And of course, not including your parents' friends, who should relate with you on a semi-formal ground. So, what else do we need to know about the IELTS semi-formal informal letter, informal letter, beg your pardon. The informal letter attracts a word count of 150, but you are expected to write between 160 and 180. If you write up to 210, you may be including unnecessary details which may not fetch you marks, but can actually result in your losing marks. So the 150 word count is approximately. You can increase your word count from between 70, 75 to 80, but not above that. You have 20 minutes to do this writing, and because of this, it requires an outside the hall training. That is, it requires prior training on how to write this letter, how to time yourself to be able to do your planning and get to write the number of words required within the 20 minutes duration. This is very important. That is why I am here to tell you what to do as your partner in progress, because I want you to make progress in this examination. First, we'll take a look at the basic features. What are you required to do? To have a bounce score of between 8.5 and 9 in IELTS letter writing. First of all, salutation. The IELTS letter writing does not include an address or a date. These are not important. Why? They are not important because the purpose of the examination is to test your language skill, your ability to communicate in English language and communicate effectively, be able to pass information across to your audience in no uncertain terms. Therefore, it is taken for granted that you are already familiar with the techniques, the nitty-gritties involved in writing an address and a date. So your letter begins with a salutation, and this is very simple. How do you salute? Write dear, or write dearest, along with the first name of the addressee. I am sure you are still familiar with these letter writing patterns. The addresser is the writer. You are the writer when you're writing the letter. You are the addresser. The addressee is the person to whom your letter is intended. The addresser is the one to whom your letter is directed or for whom it is intended. The addressee's first name is what you need to write after dear or dearest. You are the addresser. Your receiver is the addressee. Dear Frank, dearest Janet. Now, the informal letter is a casual letter. That is why it is called informal. So, your language, your tone of writing should all reflect this informality. If you prefer not to use any of this, it is acceptable to use your addressee's first name only as your salutation. The salutation must be followed by a comma. Dear Frank, comma. Dearest Janet, comma. Nancy, comma. Joe, comma. It is also acceptable in an informal letter to use your addressee's initial if there is any. If your addressee's name is John Paul, you may want to write Dear JP, and it is acceptable. If your addressee's name is Cyril, You may decide to write Dear CY. Dear CY, and that will also be acceptable. I am sure this is not difficult. You are already familiar with how to write a salutation. You already have a thorough grasp of this. Now let's move away from the salutation and talk about language. This is very important. The language of writing. What do we mean by language? Language here means the choice of words that you make as a speaker or as a writer. The kind of words you use, the kind of sentences. That's your sentence structure. Short sentences, very short sentences, long sentences, very long sentences are all inclusive. Your use of signal words and phrases or linking words and phrases. Your use of conjunctions are all inclusive. Now let's talk about signal words. You say in the first place. When you want to present the person, you put a comma, and then in the first place, it's a signal word because it signals the coming of an idea. There's an idea you intend to follow, the phrase. In the first place, the phrase is a signal phrase or a linking phrase. Then, at the beginning of another sentence or paragraph, you say next or nextly. It is also a signal word or phrase. Your ability to do all of this, the choice of words and phrases that you make as you speak or write, and your sentence structure, your ability to paraphrase are aspects of language. They contribute to the informality or otherwise of your letter. There are some kinds of words you use and your informal letter will sound too formal to be classified as informal. That is why your language has to be friendly. You have to choose words that indicate the intimacy that you enjoy with the person that you are writing to. In addition, apart from such choice of words, you are allowed, as a part of the features of an informal letter, to use familiar slang expressions. Familiar slang expressions. You are talking to your friend, you're writing to your friend, you want to speak about your parents, and you say momsy, you say popsy, and you use auntie instead of aunt. Auntie is more informal than aunt. And you say my bro for brother, my sis for my sister, my nephew for my nephew, my cuz for my cousin, and so on and so forth. These are some examples of slang expressions that are expected to form a part of your informal letter. Now, still talking about language. A part of the informality of a letter is the use of contractions. The use of what? Contractions. So, one may want to ask, what are contractions? contractions. Contractions are the short forms of primary and modal auxiliary verbs. It's a necessity in an informal letter that in order not to sound too formal, you need to use contractions. The contractions reduce your writing to an informal level. They help to infuse intimacy into the letter you are writing. One of the most popular forms of contractions are made from the forms of the verb to be. Am, is, are, was, and were. Take a look at this. From the verb am, we get this. Am, that's a contraction. We get ain't, meaning I am not. I am not. And from the verb is, we get isn't, and so many other constructions such as there's, where's, his, she's, its. And from the verb are, we get there, where, your, aren't, and from was, we get wasn't, and from where we get weren't, weren't. These are contractions. Now, if you say here's, you mean here is. And if we say there's, you mean there is. These contractions are important in an informal writing, but these are not all. There are also contractions derived from the modal auxiliary verbs like the verb to do. The verb to do, does, did, do, doesn't, didn't, don't. And contractions that are derived from the modal auxiliary verb to have, does, has, have, and had. So we say hasn't, haven't, hadn't, and a whole lot of other modal auxiliary verbs like wound, taken from will, and shan't, taken from shall, and couldn't, taken from could, and can't, taken from can, and mustn't, taken from must, and wouldn't, taken from would, and needn't, taken from need, and daren't, taken from dare, and aren't, taken from art, author. These contractions, each of these contractions means not. Won't means will not. But what we have here are the base verbs. The base verbs from which these contracted negatives are derived. What we've done is simply to add not. When we add not to the base forms, and then we get the full form from which the contractions are derived. Will not for won't, shall not for shan't, could not for couldn't, cannot for can't, must not for mustn't, would not for wouldn't, need not for needn't, dare not for daren't, and then ought not to for oughtn't. So these are just a few examples of the contractions you are expected to use while developing your informal letter. Now, away from language, I've already said that the language includes your tone, the way you sound, the intimacy which your words evoke, and then grammar, your use of the right kind of verbs in terms of tenses, your ability to use spellings very well, your sentence structure, your ability to use the right kind of word to convey your thoughts. All of these put together make up the language of your informal letter. Then we need to know a little about scoring guide. How does IELTS score you? What are the benchmarks? What are the criteria? Or what are the yardsticks for measuring your performance in IELTS writing? Your writing task attracts a 100% score. This 100% score is divided among the four elements of language skill that should make up your writing. Each of them attracts 25%, or each of them accounts for 25% of your total score. Task achievement is the same as content or response. In other words, are you able to do justice to the topic? Are you able to focus on the issue question asks you to discuss? Or do you derail? Do you deviate from what you're to talk about and begin to say things that you think are relevant but which are actually irrelevant? 25%. And then there is the CC. It's called coherence and cohesion. 25%. It's got to do with organization. Organization. Under coherence and cohesion, the ex-examiner was to find out how organized are your points, the ideas you've developed. How do you move from one paragraph to the other? Does each of your paragraphs discuss a theme, an idea? It is called the topic sentence. Does your paragraph contain a topic sentence around which you build the details of the idea it provides or the idea it introduces? So that is an aspect of organization. And then sentence structure is inclusive here. Do you use short sentences only, or long sentences only, or very short sentences and very long sentences, or are you able to have an admixture of these varieties of sentences? Maturity in writing intends that you are able to make use of all four kinds of sentences. Some of your thoughts require expression in a short sentence, text and concise. Some other ideas can be expressed in a longer sentence or in a very long sentence, or one that is short but not so short, one that is long but not so long. So your ability to make use of all these kinds of sentences matter a lot. That is also an aspect of organization. How do you link your ideas effectively using conjunctions, including the semicolon and the word or, and, but, although, though, even though, albeit, however, while, whereas, and so on and so forth? Are you able to link your ideas up in this way in your sentences? It's an aspect of organization. Then are you able to use transition elements effectively? These transition elements are named differently. Sometimes we call them linking words. Sometimes we call them suitable connectives. Others call them sentences and paragraphs connectors. Sentence connectors and paragraph connectors. I'll give you an example. If in a short piece of writing you say, I usually wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, full stop. Following that, I brush my teeth and thereafter, I tidy up the apartment. Then, I drop some water from the neighborhood well. In addition, I grab a quick shower and begin to prepare for school. This short passage contains transition elements. Remember that it begins by saying, I usually wake up. After that, thereafter, following that, then, in addition, and so on and so forth. So, all of these are required as a part of your ability to organize your thoughts. Then, there is LR. Call it lexical resource. 25% lexical resource can also mean vocabulary. Do you hunt for words while speaking? That will mean that you will not be able to write effectively. That means hunting for words. When you speak, words do not come to you naturally. Translates into you're not being able to have the appropriate words that will express your thoughts when you're writing. So vocabulary, your ability to use the right words to express your thoughts, is an aspect of language. That is a language resources. That's lexical. lexical resources, the number of words at your disposal, and your ability to use just the right kind of words to convey your thoughts. Then after that, there is grammatical resources. 25%. Excellent. Grammatical resources. We simply say grammar. It covers, it incorporates or encapsulates a number of elements. Use of the appropriate tenses, your ability to switch from the past to the present to the future, and so on and so forth. Tense, as is appropriate, is an aspect of grammatical resources. But it also includes the effective use of punctuation marks, the final full stop, the question mark, the comma, the semicolon, the colon, the apostrophe, and a whole lot of others, where it is necessary to use them. And then spelling errors. Your ability to avoid spelling errors also constitutes grammatical resources. Now, by way of vocabulary, that is lexical resources, I like to tell you that it is an aspect of language. Do you rigmarole or do you circumlocute? Circumlocution or rigmarole means to beat about the bush, to keep going around the matter. Write so many words, make your writing verbose, using so many words without actually hitting the nail on the head, without actually saying what you had in mind, making the point. So as a writer, you need skill on how to move straight to the point without wasting time. If you write in this way, you will do well in the IELTS Informal letter, and in fact in other aspects of IELTS writing. But before we close this video, our last part is, our last basic feature for today is the complementary close. In other words, how do you close your informal letter? Now, after saying all that is relevant, and when I say all that is relevant, learn how not to greet in your first paragraph, except when the purpose of writing is to greet. Every piece of writing has a purpose. That is why in the IELTS letter writing and in all kinds of IELTS writing, tax 1 and tax 2, there is an outline. The IELTS examination authority gives you an outline of the points to make. The preoccupation of this examination body is to ensure that you don't derail. That is why what to write is suggested, so that you have your purpose in mind and not derail from it. So, from the beginning, you need to know how to go straight to your point. Then after saying all the relevant things, you end the letter. If you prefer to greet, say some greeting at the end of the letter. That is when all the relevant items have been covered, and you still want to greet because you still have a word chance. You still have chance under your word range to still add a few more sentences. Then you can say your greeting in one sentence. One sentence should be enough. Then after that greeting, then that's a complimentary close. How do you end the letter? All right. The informal letter is casual writing. So there are so many elements that are acceptable. But as we prepare for an examination as important as this, we try to streamline all these diverse styles of writing. We streamline them into a few that we can use in the examination in order to obtain the required band score. So what should you say at the end of the letter? Write sincerely, sincerely, put a comma. Now below that word, write Francisca. Your first name, Francisca, or whatever is your first name, write it there. The alternative is to write affectionately and write your name James. You may also prefer to write in full yours sincerely, Jennifer. Yours affectionately, Mabel. You may also turn these words around and then you say sincerely yours, Patrick, or affectionately yours, Johnson, as the case may be. Now notice that when you write in full, yours sincerely or yours affectionately, that the second of the two words begins with a small letter, while the first begins with a capital letter. These are some important rules that you have to bear in mind while writing an informal letter. Now, another alternative to this complimentary clause is to simply write your name alone as a complimentary clause. At the end of your letter, you simply write Maria, or you write JP, the initial, as your complimentary clause. It is also acceptable. My treasured viewers, I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. I have enjoyed your company also. So if you've also enjoyed mine, I'll ask you for some favors. If you have a question for me, a question on what we've discussed today or on other issues on English language, or you have some observations to make, you want to tell me something I can do to make this channel better, please drop your comments on the comment section. Otherwise, you can send me a post on WhatsApp using the number 091 333 01790. That is 091 333 01790. If you've enjoyed the video, give this video a thumbs up, like this video, and possibly subscribe to this channel so as to encourage us to do more. I look forward to hearing from you. Since we have taken a look at the requirements for a successful band 9 scoring IELTS informal letter, in our next video we will do the actual writing of an informal letter. We have written one in our immediate previous video, but in our next video we're now going to take the second of such IELTS informal letter. Till then, take care of yourself.